You wake up with no cells, no metabolism, no way to eat, breathe, or move on your own. Technically, you are not alive. You have no heartbeat to start, no lungs to fill, no muscle to twitch, and yet in the next few seconds, you're going to hijack a living body and make more of yourself than there are stars in the observable universe. Scientists believe there are somewhere around 10 nonillion virus particles on Earth right now. That's a 10 followed by 31 zeros. Stack that many grains of sand and you'd bury every planet in the solar system. You are the most successful thing that was never technically alive to begin with. But let's back up, because your story doesn't start with a heartbeat. It starts with an assembly line. Somewhere inside a cell that isn't yours, a protein shell, scientists call it a capsid, snaps together around a single strand of genetic code, piece by piece, like furniture built with no instructions and zero quality control. No supervisor checking the work. And here's the part nobody tells you. Most of your siblings coming off that same line are duds. Copying errors happen constantly, and a huge share of the particles built alongside you are defective before they even leave the factory floor. Missing a piece. Malformed. Broken before they've done a single thing. They'll never infect anything. They're dead weight before they're even finished. You are the lucky one in a flood of broken copies. And you didn't do anything to earn it. You just happened to come out right. You'd think your first real threat would come from somewhere out in the world. It doesn't. It's already here, inside the very cell that's building you. The host's own defense systems are hunting for your blueprint before you've even finished forming, patrolling proteins looking for anything that shouldn't be there, ready to shred your genetic code mid-construction. You are being manufactured and hunted in the exact same breath, in the exact same room. So where do you actually live? Anywhere, with a cell to break into. Lungs, guts, blood, skin, even bacteria. If you happen to be the kind of virus that preys on bacteria instead of animals, a bacteriophage, built like a tiny lunar lander, legs planted on a bacterial cell wall, drilling its genetic payload straight through the surface. Outside a host, though, you're not living anywhere. You're just inert cargo, sitting on a doorknob, floating in a droplet from someone's cough, riding along on a hand that hasn't been washed yet, waiting for a door to open, with absolutely no way to make that happen yourself. And a normal day, in the way anything else on this planet has one, doesn't exist for you. You're either doing nothing at all, a lifeless particle biding time, no thoughts, no processes running, or you're in the middle of a frantic, all-consuming takeover, using someone else's machinery because you didn't bring any of your own. There is no in-between setting, no slow morning. It's off, or it's total chaos. Here's where it gets strange though. Some of you don't destroy your host right away. Instead, you quietly slot your own genetic code directly into theirs, splicing yourself into their chromosome like an uninvited paragraph inserted into someone else's book. And then you wait. Not for minutes, not for days, sometimes for years, riding along silently as the host cells divide over and over again, copying a piece of you into every single new cell they make, for free, without them ever knowing. You are a sleeper agent embedded in someone's own biology, patient in a way nothing that's actually alive could manage, waiting for a signal to wake up and start the real hijack. What triggers that signal? Stress, illness, a change in the cell's environment. Sometimes nobody fully understands why. You could be sitting inside someone right now, quietly filed away in their DNA, doing nothing at all, for years. Now, your one real superpower, the thing that makes you dangerous despite having no body to speak of. You don't have muscles. You don't have eyes. You certainly don't have a brain. What you have is the single most efficient lockpicking mechanism in nature. A surface protein shaped to fit one specific receptor on one specific type of cell, like a keycut for exactly one lock on the entire planet. Try to imagine living your entire existence this way. Your entire purpose, your entire chance at continuing to exist is encoded in the exact three-dimensional shape of your own front door key. Get that shape even slightly wrong and you die doing absolutely nothing. No drama, no struggle, no one even notices. You simply drift inert until you fall apart. But get the shape right, and the door doesn't just open. It welcomes you in, disables its own alarm system, and hands you the keys to the entire factory. And some of you take that idea to an extreme nobody expected to find in something this small. Certain giant viruses, the kind with names like Pandora virus and Mimivirus, carry more than 2 million base pairs of genetic material, genomes so large and complex that scientists have genuinely argued over whether you should still be classified as a virus at all, or whether you're something closer to a stripped-down cell wearing a virus's costume. Some of these giants are big enough to actually see under a regular light microscope, which, for something in your category, is roughly the equivalent of a human suddenly being visible from space. You've gotten so complicated, you've broken the very category you were supposed to belong to. Now let's talk about eating, because strictly speaking, you don't. You don't have a mouth, you don't have a gut, you don't have any way to break down nutrients for energy. You outsource the entire process, start to finish, to something else's body. The moment you're inside a cell, you switch off its normal to-do list, the genes it would usually be reading, proteins it would usually be building for itself, and force its machinery to read your instructions instead. That cell is now building you for free, using its own energy, its own resources, its own body as the factory floor. In something like an influenza infection, a single hijacked cell can pump out thousands of new viral particles in one replication cycle before it's finally spent, like a hostage forced to keep printing counterfeit currency until the till runs completely, permanently dry. Then it's discarded. Nobody thanks it for its work, and you're not exactly careful about how you do this, either. If you're an RNA virus, you copy your own genetic code sloppily and fast, full of mistakes, full of mutations, constantly, generation after generation, sometimes within hours. It's not precision, it's brute force. Millions of slightly wrong copies of yourself thrown out into the world at once, until one of those mistakes happens to be an upgrade. A shape that dodges an antibody, a key that fits a lock it couldn't open before. Its evolution running on fast forward, compressed into days instead of centuries. And you are simultaneously the test subject and the experiment, which brings us to your predators. And there are more of them than you'd think for something with no body to attack. Your biggest one is the very organism you're living inside. The immune system sends antibodies and killer cells, hunting for your exact shape the second you're detected, flooding the area, marking you for destruction. And it doesn't stop there. Infected cells release chemical alarms called interferons, warning every neighboring cell to shut down the exact machinery you'll need before you've even arrived at their door. It's like showing up to rob a bank and finding out every branch across the entire city already changed its locks, because word got out the moment you hit the first one. And if you happen to be a bacteriophage, a virus that infects bacteria instead of animal cells, you've got an entirely separate predator waiting in the wings. It's called CRISPR. Bacteria have their own immune system that literally slices your genetic code into pieces and files the leftover fragments away as a mugshot, a permanent record, so the next time something that looks like you shows up, it's recognized and destroyed almost instantly. You're not just fighting one immune system over the course of your existence. Depending on what you infect, you might be up against two completely different, unrelated defense systems, evolved millions of years apart, both built for the sole purpose of erasing you. Now, reproduction. Let's not pretend there's romance involved here. There isn't. Mating for you is just uncontrolled copying, cell after cell, no partner required in the traditional sense. But every so often something genuinely interesting happens. Two different strains of you infect the exact same cell at the exact same time, and your genetic material gets shuffled together like two decks of cards dumped into one pile and redealt. New combination, new strain, overnight with no warning. This is quite literally one of the mechanisms behind new pandemic flu strains. Not slow, gradual evolution, but two house guests swapping genetic furniture inside a single hijacked room and walking out as something the immune system has never seen before. And here's the brutal irony nobody warns you about going in. Making more of you is, almost every single time, a one-way suicide mission for the cell that builds you. After being forced to manufacture you by the thousands, that cell frequently ruptures completely. A process called lysis, and dies outright, or it's simply worn down so badly by the sheer volume of production that it can no longer function at all, alive in name only. Your children are, quite literally, born from the wreckage of the very thing that made them possible. There's no celebration, there's no gathering, there's just a burst cell, some cellular debris, and a few thousand new copies of you, walking calmly out the door as if nothing happened. Not all of you are that messy about it though, which is worth pointing out. Enveloped viruses, the kind like HIV, don't even need to kill the cell outright to reproduce successfully. Instead, they bud out through the cell's own outer membrane one at a time, wrapping themselves in a stolen piece of the host's own body as a disguise on the way out, slowly draining the cell dry over time rather than bursting it open all at once in one dramatic moment. It's a slower death for the host. The outcome, eventually, tends to be the same either way. So here's the moment where you finally have to ask the question this entire video has been quietly building toward. What are you really? By almost every biological definition scientists use, you are not alive. No metabolism of your own, no independent energy production, no cellular structure whatsoever. You can't do a single thing without stealing the body of something else first. And yet you outnumber every living thing on this entire planet combined easily without much competition. That's not even the shocking part, though. Here's the actual shocking part. Scientists believe a meaningful chunk of the human genome, commonly cited at around 8%, though the exact figure varies depending on the study, is made up of ancient viral DNA. Genetic material from viruses like you or your distant ancestors that got stuck inside the DNA of early humans and their predecessors millions of years ago and simply never left. Sit with that for a second, because it's stranger than it first sounds. Part of the reason humans exist, develop the way they do, and reproduce successfully today is running on code that used to be you. Certain proteins essential to human pregnancy are believed by researchers to have originated from ancient viral genes, repurposed over millions of years into something the human body now depends on completely. You didn't just infect life on this planet. In some very real, very literal sense, you became a permanent part of it. But don't get comfortable, because none of that borrowed immortality applies to you personally. You, specifically, right now. You don't die of old age, because you were never alive enough in the first place to age the way anything else does. What actually happens to you is something scientists call denaturing. Heat breaks you apart. Ultraviolet light breaks you apart. Simply drying out, sitting exposed to open air for too long breaks you apart. A single splash of disinfectant ends you almost instantly. No fight, no resistance. Your protein shell falls apart at the seams. Your genetic code degrades into meaningless biochemical litter. And that's it. No struggle, no last breath. There isn't one for you to take, because there never was one to begin with. Outside a host, your entire lifespan is really just a countdown clock, and not a particularly generous one. Some viral particles can survive on a hard surface for a few hours. Some, under the right conditions of temperature and moisture, can hang on for a few days. And once that clock quietly hits zero, you're just inert molecular debris that nobody on Earth will ever notice, remember, or mourn. And here's the part that should sting a little, if you were capable of feeling anything at all. Your most likely cause of death isn't some heroic, dramatic battle against an immune system, fought and lost in glorious detail. It's someone wiping down a kitchen counter while thinking about literally anything else. Dinner, a text message, what's on television later. You could survive an entire war against a fully mobilized immune system, dodge antibodies, outmaneuver interferons, and still lose everything to a paper towel and a bottle of spray cleaner nobody even reads the label on. You started this entire existence not alive. You're ending it exactly the same way, on a countertop, unnoticed, unmourned. The only real difference is that somewhere out there, right now, billions of tiny fragments of your genetic code are sitting quietly, permanently, folded into the DNA of things that will outlive you by millions of years without ever knowing your name. If your whole life ran on borrowed machinery, stolen time, and someone else's body doing all the actual work, and you're still, somehow, more successful than almost everything else on this planet, hit subscribe. It's honestly the least chaotic decision you'll make all day.